5 a.m.
Hello everyone, Randy Turpin here coming to you today on the 5 a.m. podcast. Welcome, glad you're joining me here today. I am recording today in Studio A. Studio A. You may be wondering, what is the significance of Studio A? Well, when I first started doing Facebook Live a number of years ago, I started out in Studio A, my automobile. That's right. I'm not in my home studio like I usually am with a nice studio mic and recording system and software. No, today I'm just in my car using the recording device on my smartphone, and I hope this comes out okay. It's not going to have a lot of editing on it because I'm on the road, and when I'm on the road, I don't have access to as much to make this super nice for you, but here we are anyway. At the time that we're releasing this particular episode, this is the week in which Valentine's Day occurs. Valentine's Day. That brings back memories for me of back when I was a kid in school, and I don't know how it was when you were in school. Maybe you're still in school, but back in those days, we had in our classroom these little paper bags. Every one of us had a little paper bag with our name on it, and we taped it up against the wall in our classroom, and everybody deposited little paper, cardboard Valentine cards into it. And, over the years, the exchange of Valentine's Day cards were a significant things. As kids, parents would get their kids Valentine's Day cards, and even today, children might get their parents and other relatives. And if you have a sweetheart, those exchanges. And but for some people, it's kind of a sad day, because they don't really have anybody real significant to do that exchange with. Well, there's nothing wrong with that practice. It's a bit of a secular practice, but did you know that actually Valentine's Day began with a bit more of a religious and spiritual touch to it? Did you realize that? That Valentine, that word Valentine is actually a man's name. He was Saint Valentine, and I want to share a little bit about that today. And you may be wondering, what on earth does that have to do with the theme of 5 a.m.? Is this really about holidays and celebrations? Well, it is part of culture, and it is just one example among many of how spiritual, religious types of celebrations has been secularized over the years and has lost the original meaning. I want to talk about this because I think that we can actually revive some of this. I think in our culture right now, as of today, it appears to me that things are tipping back toward a more wholesome and conservative direction as far as morality and spirituality, the ability to be more open about our faith without fear of intimidation and social persecution. I'm seeing a lot more people speaking out for faith. A lot of the craziness in our culture is being exposed for what it is, and a lot more wholesome and godly things seem to be moving in to take their place, which for me, that's something we Christians should be celebrating. So let's talk about Valentine's Day. I'm not against the secular aspect of this, of exchanging cards and all of that. That's great. That's fine. I intend to do something like that for my wife. Of course, that is coming upon us very quickly, so I'd better act quickly. With me being on the road, it's a little bit of a challenge at the moment. But Valentine's Day, how did this even start? Well, I want to take you back to 3rd century Rome. The empire was experiencing what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. And Emperor Claudius II ruled with an iron fist. Now, there's several historical accounts of Saint Valentine, which is who we're really talking about here today. And there were multiple martyrs, people who died for the faith that were named Valentine or Valentinus or Tinus, however you pronounce that. But I want to focus on the most well-documented account. The Valentine we're discussing was a priest in Rome during a time when Christians faced severe persecution. Emperor Claudius had issued an edict prohibiting the marriage of young people, believing that unmarried soldiers fought better because they had no family attachments. Well, here was Valentine, the priest Valentine. Valentine, understanding the sacred nature of Christian marriage, refused to comply with this unjust law. So in secret, he continued to perform marriage ceremonies for young Christian couples. This act of defiance wasn't really about rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It was about staying true to God's design for human relationships, even in the face of imperial opposition. Now think about that for a moment. In our own time, when Christian values are increasingly under attack, I think we can draw strength from Valentine's example. He understood that there are times when we must choose between divine law and human law. Now, bear in mind, I'm not advocating lawlessness here, but there are occasions when, whether it be by human law or just the pressures and expectations of a secular culture, it feels like we're being forced into a certain mold that does not really fit with Christian values. Well, in those times, we've got to take a stand. We have to speak out. And thankfully, I think we're in a season now where more and more Christians are speaking out that sense of intimidation is not as severe. So Valentine understood that there were times that you had to speak up or even act. In his case, he was acting secretly in a way that was in keeping with divine law when human law was opposing God's will. Valentine's ministry went beyond just performing marriages. He was known for ministering to Christians who were being persecuted under Roman rule. And when he was eventually arrested, during his imprisonment, historical accounts tell us that he formed a friendship with his jailer's daughter, who was blind. Through Valentine's prayers, this young girl received her sight. That's right. Those of you who believe in signs, wonders, and miracles as a present-day reality, as a manifestation of God's kingdom, you should be shouting hallelujah right here because yes, Saint Valentine was also a person through whom God worked miracles. And the account is that this jailer's daughter miraculously received her eyesight due to the ministry of Saint Valentine. Now, this young girl who received her sight, I think the story went something like this, that there was a letter exchange going on between the two of them, and Valentine signed one of his letters, something like this, from your Valentine, and your Valentine. So that expression has become popular today in the celebrating of Valentine's Day on February 14th. There's more to the story. Around the year 270 AD, Valentine was executed. Yeah, the official charge was his refusal to renounce his faith and his continued practice of Christianity. He chose martyrdom over denying Christ. He chose martyrdom over defying the ways of God. It wasn't until 496 AD that February 14th, the day of his martyrdom, was established as Saint Valentine's feast day. The timing was strategic. It was meant to Christianize the pagan fertility festival, the fertility feast day of Lupercalia, which was celebrated around the same time of the year, around February, the middle of February. That's a pattern we see throughout Christian history, really. Not the total, I'm talking about when it comes to secular festivities and festivals, wherever Christianity is advancing, many times throughout history, you see not the total elimination of the cultural celebration, but the redemption and transformation of that celebration into an opportunity for Christian witness. I mean, a lot of the stuff we see with Christmas is very similar to that. A lot of the things we practice at Christmas time had its origin in secular, even pagan practice, but Christians redeemed the practice and put symbolic meanings to different things like holly and Christmas trees and all of that stuff to have more of a Christian message behind it. And such was the case with the instituting of February 14th as Valentine's Day or Saint Valentine's Day. The modern celebration of Valentine's Day, as we've pointed out, it has become completely disconnected from its Christian roots. Instead of remembering a martyr who died defending Christian marriage and faith, we've created a purely secular celebration that while not harmful in itself, it does miss an incredible opportunity for Christian testimony. But I believe we can redeem it. I really do. Imagine if every February 14th, we brought back the emphasis on celebrating marriage between a man and a woman that was even going against the cultural norm at the time. Can you imagine if that was what it began to be about? Celebrating married love, as well as the other, expressions of love to one another. That's fine too. But also imagine this. What if Christian families gathered on February 14th to tell the story of Saint Valentine and his faithfulness? Imagine if we used this day to teach our children. Take notes, because I'm expect to see some of you to start doing this, because I think it would be great if we would use February 14th, Valentine's Day, as an occasion to teach our children about standing firm in their faith, even when it costs them something. And imagine if we saw this day as an opportunity to reflect on the sacred nature of Christian marriage and the importance of defending biblical values in our culture. Well, my friends, originally I was going to have Pastor Steve Gardner on here with me. He pastors Christ the Rock Church in Knoxville to discuss this, and I know Steve's probably listening to this right now. I am going to have him on here soon to share his testimony very soon. It might even be a two-parter. We'll see how that goes. I was originally going to have him on today's episode, but scheduled conflicts happened on my end, and this unexpected road trip that I'm on right now that has made it necessary for me to be in Studio A today. So Steve, if you're listening, we're going to still schedule a time together. Back when I was doing Kingdom Conversations, Steve and I did a couple of episodes on the raising of the dead, which he's been a witness to the raising of several people from the dead. Maybe we'll get him back on here to talk about that soon. But he also has a lot of insight in this whole thing we're talking about today, the things that need to be redeemed in culture and how we as Christians can be an influence in redeeming some things. And so, Steve, looking forward to having you on here for us to dig into some of this stuff together. We'll probably be on here frequently. And I think he's about to begin his own podcast. I'll let you know when that starts. And hopefully you'll get to listen to what Steve brings to the table as well. Well, before we bring this to a close, I want to speak to those of you today who may be feeling discouraged by the increasing secularization of our society. When I say increasing, it is possible that the tide may be shifting. Maybe that's the first word of encouragement we can draw from this. Saint Valentine's story reminds us that the light of Christ shines brightest in the darkest times. That's the whole theme of 5 a.m. Though we live in the present evil age, the kingdom of light is breaking in upon the kingdom of darkness. Just like at 5 a.m., the sun is about to come up. Valentine's courage in 3rd century Rome inspires our courage in 21st century America. Think about it. Think about some of the things I've said here about how we might redeem February 14th in the days going forward. As we close our time together this morning, I want to leave you with this thought. Valentine's greatest act of love wasn't giving cards or flowers. It was being willing to die for his faith and his commitment to God's truth. In our own time, we're called to demonstrate the same kind of sacrificial love and the same kind of boldness to stand for what is right, what is good, what is true, what exalts Christ and honors our God. Love for the truth, love for God's design in marriage and relationship. You know, a marriage is to be between a man and a woman, God's design. A love for a world that desperately needs this truth that I'm talking about, and they desperately need to hear the gospel. So really, if we truly embrace the original intent of honoring Saint Valentine, that's what we're going to do. So before we go today, I want to remind you, check the description. You'll find there some links to some things that may have been of interest to you. My daughter's book on Daybreak, my book on 21 Days of Prayer and Fasting, and I may even place in there a link to Pastor Steve Gardner's book, Sheep and Shepherds. I haven't even told you about that yet, but it's something that both pastors and church members should read to really understand that relationship between pastors and their congregation. We'll talk more about that when we actually get Steve on here. But in the meantime, check that out. And also, if you just want to email me prayer requests, your comments, and suggestions about episodes going forward, email me at 5am.randyturpin@gmail.com, 5am.randyturpin@gmail.com. So that does it, folks. Hey, don't lose heart. Keep looking up. It's a new day, and the sunlight of God's kingdom is going to be getting brighter and brighter and brighter, because on God's timeline, it's just like it's 5 a.m.